Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite new drugstore finds. If you are not new to my channel, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Icon palettes from Makeup Revolution or Revolution Beauty. I think it's just Revolution. Yeah, I discovered this one, the Enchanted Icon, last year, and I loved it so much that I picked up the other versions. I wanted to do a look featuring each palette, and also I'll give you swatches, up close shots of the palette, so if you wanted to try one out, you could see which color story would suit your needs, your preferences the best. So I hope that's useful and helpful for you. And the look is just to show you how the shadows perform and give you a little bit of inspiration. At the end, I'm also going to give you my overall impressions, thoughts on the collection, how all of the palettes perform, are some better than others. I hope you guys find that helpful. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into look number one. Today we're going to play with the True Icon palette from Makeup Revolution. This is the more rosy, warm tone color story out of all of the palettes. So you get 2 creams and then 5 mattes, 5 shimmers. And the mattes are organized in a gradient from light to deep. I'll go ahead and insert some swatches so you can see how these colors look on the skin and the reflex of the shimmers as best as I can. So I already primed my eyes. Don't have any other makeup on, but that's because I'm going to be doing a foundation review. So we're just going to do the eyes and then I'll jump back at the end to give you the final look. Today I do want to experiment a little bit with the creams just because if you've watched any of my videos, you know what a fan I am of the, the Enchanted Icon, the more cool tone, like ethereal, purpley pink color story. But I haven't played with the creams all that much in that palette. So I kind of want to try playing with the creams a little bit more. So it comes with a little sticky plastic protective cover. That's not my favorite just because I feel like I'm gonna lose this or the adhesive is going to wear off and then I'm just gonna be left with open creams. So not my favorite, but better than nothing, I guess. You get a lighter rosy cream and then a deep brown cream. Let's try to use the deep brown cream as a liner. I'm gonna take this little tiny pointed brush from Morphe. This is the M217 and I'm just going to dip into the cream. You can see it's pretty emollient, it looks like in the pan. Oh yeah, very pigmented. It glides on super easily. I'm gonna smudge the edges out just slightly with a clean brush. I do have a little bit of concealer also under my eyes just to give a little bit of something to blend on top of so the shadow has something to stick to. Let's go in with the deep brown and then we'll blend it out with the orangey shade just to smoke it out a bit. I don't know if you can tell, but this cream brown has a bit of almost a terracotta undertone. It's like a reddish, orangey, rosy tone. I'm just stamping that over the cream. The shade is nice and pigmented. So I'm just going with that orange now and I'm placing it like on the edge of where my bare skin and where the deep brown shadow meet. I'm going to take this light warm brown, just use that to contour the crease a bit. Whoa, these are so pigmented. and just buff it along the lower lash line too. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my NYX glitter glue just to prevent any fallout. This shade right here looks like a duochrome. I don't know if you can tell on camera. It kind of flips from pink to gold. Really pretty. But I think today I want to try this orange. That's pretty much it. I think I'm just going to catch the other eye up to speed. Okay, so I'm back. I just applied a little bit of a brown liner, just this one from Almay, to my waterline, just because I felt like the cream was a little bit too reddish for my waterline, for my preferences. I want a little bit more depth, so I went with a brown liner. And then I did just enhance the pointiness of the inner corner a little bit with my Stila waterproof liquid liner, and then just a tiny bit on the outer corner. And yeah, I really like how this look turned out. If you like warm tones, if you like rosy tones, I think you would really enjoy this. So let's go ahead and move on to the next palette. To start this look, we're going to go in with the deepest cream, and we're going to use that as a base to build our look. I'm just stamping that on the outer corner and then slightly buffing that into the crease and just blending it out, but building up the intensity until I am happy with the depth. Then I'm going to set that with the light taupey brown, and I'm just buffing that around the edges of the cream to build a transition and just help the cream shade blend into my skin tone better. I'm then going to take the second to deepest slate gray color, and I'm going to stamp that pretty much over everywhere I placed the cream to set the cream down and to also add depth. So I'm stamping that on the outer corner, sort of in a like backwards C, winged out sort of shape. And then I'm stamping that into the crease a little bit lower than where we placed the first transition. Then I'm going to take the white cream and we're going to use that to cut the crease. And I was actually very impressed by how pigmented and opaque this white cream was. It worked really well to cut the crease, so I just stamped that all along the lid, and then I set that down with the deep navy shimmer, and I'm stamping that where the white cream and the outer corner meet as a transition. And then to brighten up the rest of the lid, I'm taking that really beautiful silvery blue shade and just pressing that all over the white cream. I then go in with some navy eyeliner. This one's just from L'Oreal, to Tightline. And then I also draw that along the lower lash line and the waterline. And then for the lower lash line, I take the lighter taupey brown that we used for the transition, just smudge that all the way across. I take the deep smoky gray, also smudge that all the way across a little bit closer. I take some black eyeliner. This one's from LA Girl. And then I take a white matte from a different palette for the inner corner, because this palette does not have a bright enough matte for my inner corner. And that is the finished look. I really like how it turned out. So for this look, we're going to start by taking the lightest rosy tone matte in the palette, and we're going to use that as a transition. So I'm just buffing that all through the crease and just doing a soft layer all around the upper crease and then along the lower lash line as well, all the way across. And then we're gonna take the deeper sort of eggplanty purple, and I'm concentrating that on the outer corner and slightly into the crease. I'm gonna eventually bring it all the way into the crease, as you can see with the other eye, and I'm just using that purple to really shape out my lid and create the structure for the eye look. So again, it's that backwards sort of C shape and then creating some depth in the crease. I'm then just blending out the edges of that purple and really just making sure there's no harsh lines. I'm then going to take my NYX glitter glue just to prevent any fallout, and I'm pressing that on the lid in the negative space. Then I'm going to take the most gorgeous shimmer in the palette, that lime green, and I'm pressing that all over the lid where I placed the glitter glue. To blend the bright lid shade with the deeper outer corner, I take the deeper mossy green, and then I'm creating a wing with the cream in this palette. I will say the creams are very, very, very emollient, so I would recommend setting the creams down, which I eventually do. I tried to highlight my inner corner with the lightest peachy shade in the palette, but it wasn't quite light enough for my skin tone, so I did end up going in with the Patrick Ta Major Dimensions 3 palette, the matte white, to lighten it up a bit. And then as you can see here, I am setting that cream down with the other deep purpley brown matte in this palette. It's not much different than the one we used in the crease, but it creates a little bit of contrast and it helps to keep the cream in place. So yeah, that is the finished look with the Eternal Icon palette. The last palette is the Enchanted Icon. This is the first palette that made me fall in love with this Icon palette collection, so I figured it would be the palette to be the finale. I guess it's the palette that I'm wearing today, and all that I did, it's really easy. I wanted to do a simple halo eye, so I just took the darker rosy cream and used that as a base on the inner and outer corners and slightly blend that into the crease, but not too much. I then set the cream with the darkest, not the darkest shade, but the second to deepest shade, and I set the cream with that. And then to buff out the edges, I went in with this sort of a mauvey nude shade and used that to blend out the edges and really kind of buff out the crease. For the lower lash line, I did the same thing. I just took the lighter mauve and buffed that all the way across, and then tighter to the lashes, I took the deeper brown. The sparkle that you see in the center of my lid is this gorgeous duochrome. It is a gold to a pink shift. It's hard to see on camera, but it is so special, and the fact that this palette has duochromes in it is what really stood out to me, because I don't think I've ever seen a duochrome in a drugstore or affordable palette before, especially not one that is just so pretty. So yeah, that's all that I did for this look. So yeah guys, those are all 4 looks, and now I wanted to give you guys some quick impressions of the Icon palette collection as a whole, because I did find some things worth mentioning as I was creating all 4 looks and swatching out all the palettes. I feel that all of the mattes in the palettes are the same great quality. They're a little bit powdery, so you can get a bit of fallout or kick up. That doesn't bother me because they blend out so beautifully and they're very, very pigmented. They remind me a little bit of ABH eyeshadows. If you've ever tried those, they have a little bit of kick up, but it doesn't take away from their quality or performance, in my opinion. The only matte that I did struggle with just a tiny bit were some of these deeper purples in the Eternal Icon palette. This one in particular, these 2 mattes I felt were a little bit too close. I would have preferred one to be a little bit lighter or a little bit deeper. On the eyes, I felt they looked very, very similar. Also, I would have preferred one of these to be a little bit lighter. I tried to use this peachy shade as an inner corner highlight and it just wasn't bright enough for me, but those are personal preferences. The issue was with the blendability of these purples. They were a little bit tricky to build upon themselves. Once I started building them up, they sort of picked up the product underneath and got a little bit patchy, but not super bad, still workable. I still was able to create a wonderful look. Just something worth mentioning, those are the only shades that I had even the slightest amount of difficulty with. Aside from that, I love the mattes. I think they're really, really good quality, especially for the price. Let me just go palette by palette because I feel like that will be the easiest way for me to give you like speed reviews. Starting off with the True Icon palette. I believe this one is meant to be a dupe for one of Patrick Ta's Major Dimension palettes. Definitely you can see that reflected in the layout with the 2 creams and then the gradient of light to deep mattes and the 5 shimmers. I think this palette is gorgeous. I had no issues building a look. I also really like the range of mattes. You get really light to really deep. Some of these middle shades end up looking a little similar on the eyes, but overall I was really impressed, and I did find some good range in variance. Some of these are more rosy, some are a little bit more red, so you got a little bit of diversity in the undertones as well. And these shimmers are gorgeous. I used this bright orange on my lid in the look that I did for you guys, but I will say that the most interesting shade, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, this one is the duochrome. It's like a green gold to a pink. I love that there's a special shade in here. The rest of the shimmers are really gorgeous, very soft, a little bit crumbly, but not too bad. This one over here is a little bit more of a satiny shade. It's not as creamy or thick as the other shades, so there is slight difference in some of the shimmer formulas, but that doesn't bother me because I still think it's beautiful. It's not a dud. The creams worked wonderfully as a base. I really liked using them to create that smoky liner look. They are very, very creamy, so I will say if you're going to use them, you need to set them down with one of the powders or else it's just going to smudge and smear everywhere. But yeah, that was the Eternal Icon. I really liked this one. Next was the Smoky Icon. I will be honest, this was the palette I thought was going to be my favorite just because I love a silvery blue shadow. Just makes my heart like flutter. But this palette actually I think was my least favorite. It wasn't bad, still good quality. If you are absolutely in love with this color story, I don't think you would be super disappointed, but I don't think it's the best out of the 4 palettes that I've tried, simply because there is one dud shade, this one that looks kind of like, I don't know, it almost looks like those Huda Beauty marbled weird texture sort of shades. It's just very, very dry. It's a little bit disappointing, anticlimactic. You think, oh, what's this one gonna look like? And it's just a deep, like slate gray with not a lot of reflect, not a lot of shimmer. It's, in my opinion, not that pretty. So I was a little bit bummed about having a dud in the palette because you only get 5 shimmers. You want them all to be amazing. This shade's pretty cool. It's a, I guess you could call it a duochrome, or it's just really dimensional. It's got some bluish green and then purple and brown, but it's a little bit deep for something that I would wear regularly. I do wish it was one of the lighter shades that had that pop. So yeah, the shimmers in this one were fine, but not as spectacular, amazing as the other palettes. The creams were great. This white cream actually performed a lot better than I was expecting. I used this to create a cut crease instead of a concealer. It was pretty opaque. I thought maybe it would be not super pigmented, but I was actually surprised by how opaque it is. And again, it's the same creamy, very emollient formula. The mattes in this palette are gorgeous. I love the tones of these neutral, leaning cool tone browns. My only criticism is that these are all very light and these two are very similar. So I don't know, I wish there was just a hint more range, a little bit lighter, maybe a little bit deeper, but that's just, again, a personal preference in the way I like to do my eyeshadow looks. Overall, I like the palette, but that was the only palette that I found had a big dud in my opinion. Next was the Eternal Icon. This is the more rosy green, like earth fairy woodland palette. It's really, really pretty. I actually really enjoyed this palette. This lime green is just scrumptious. I will say that this shade, I don't know if mine just came broken. This shade is a little bit more, almost like a satin. It's a little bit more hard pressed, but it is a really pretty color. The deeper shimmers tend to be more satiny, whereas the brighter ones are a little bit more of that really like sparkly, intense shimmer. I wish this one maybe had one more special shade because that green is honestly the best in the palette. Again, these two mattes are a little bit too similar for my preferences. I would have preferred one to be a little bit lighter or a little bit deeper. I would have preferred one of these shades to be a little bit lighter for an inner corner highlight. But other than that, I think it's really, really great. And then last but not least is my baby, my first love, the Enchanted Icon. I still think this one is my favorite, if I'm being honest. It's just so good. This one has the best shimmers out of all of the palettes. The creams are amazing. Again, I used the cream to create the base for my look today, and these shimmers are just... This one is the gold to pink duochrome, so pretty, so reflective. This pink is super sparkly, like ballerina baby doll pink. And this purple, it's almost a holographic shade. If you've ever tried a holographic indie shadow, it's got that purple luminescence to it. It's just so special. I love the shimmers in this palette, and while the other palettes do have nice shimmers and some really special shades, this one still has the best, the most unique ones in my opinion. And you do get 6 shimmers in this palette, only 4 mattes, and that's different than the other palettes. I'm just now realizing. I don't really think that this one is that special compared to the others. Like, it's fine, it's a pretty pearly satiny shade, but if this one was a white matte, that would have been even better in my opinion, because none of these mattes goes super light. The lightest shade in the palette is a cream, but you want something to set that cream down, so I would have preferred that to be a white matte. Again, that's just me, but I do like how deep this palette goes with that super deep dark, almost blackened purple. The mattes are gorgeous, very pigmented, very blendable. Overall, the mattes for the most part are really great in these Icon palettes. Little kick up, loosely pressed, but you can build them and blend them. Overall, I think these are some of the most special shimmers that you will find in any affordable palette. Again, some palettes have more of those special shades than others. For the most part, none of them is a dud. Some of the shimmers are more satin, sheeny, some are more, not chunky, but a little bit thicker, more sparkly. So just be aware of the variety in formula, I guess. And yeah, I would say go with your gut, pick a color story that you feel you are going to use and that is going to bring you the most joy. I don't think you'll be disappointed, but I will say if I had to pick one, it would still be the Enchanted Icon. In second place is the True Icon, because it has really nice shimmers as well and a nice gradient of mattes. In third place is the Eternal Icon, because that green shade is just scrumptious. And then the last place is the Smoky Icon. Still good. I liked the cream white the best, actually, which surprised me. And the light blue shimmer is very breathtaking as well. Oh, and on a final note on the creams, I actually didn't think that I was going to use the creams or like the creams that much, but I find myself really enjoying the fact that they are in these palettes. I'm someone who always primes my eyes. I like to go in with eyeliner bases sometimes, shadow sticks to help sculpt out my eye look. So having these creams in there are just really handy, and I find myself really enjoying my looks every time I reach into them. If you're not someone who really likes creams or really uses a lot of creams, you might be put off by the fact that they are in these palettes, but I'm telling you, just try them. Try them as a base, try them as a liner, stamp some shadow over top. You might be really surprised by how much you enjoy them. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know which palette you are interested in trying or picking up. Which color story do you like the best? Which look did you enjoy the most? Thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah, I hope I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye!